did get something. Cool. And I'm caught up. Huh? And I'm... Aww. Hey, so Brandon here. I've been asked to do a video on how I clean my gear, and I just finished taking my son out to do some light shore casting at low tide, and so now's a good time to at least do the spinning setup. So the first thing that I do is always I remove my lure, and then I bring in the line completely. And typically I would not cut that off, but for my shore casting setup, my eyes on this rod are too small to be able to bring that solid ring through with the swivel. So I have to cut it in this case, and I don't like cutting it because this leader line that I use is actually quite expensive, and I waste it every time I cut a little bit of it. So what I'm trying to do now, and I usually have like a rubber band or something, but I can usually just tuck it underneath itself, and then tighten it up so I can do the next step. All right, so I'm just gonna try to tighten that up a little bit. Yeah, that's good enough. And so I always take my reel off of my rod no matter what. So I have my Stella 5000 here, and the rod that I was using was the Boggy Lethrinus Nebulosus, and this is the Eno 755 medium light, 7.5 foot, lower weight, 2 to 30 grams. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is carefully lay that down. I'm going to turn on my water here. I'm going to make sure that my, sorry, that's my towel. It's not on that setting. I'm going to make sure that it's on a drench. I want to make sure that my drag is up all the way. And then I'm just going to rinse this off. I'm going to hold it just like this. I'm just going to rinse it off really well. And then after I'm done rinsing it, I'm going to then spin it and just kind of set that off to the side for now, carefully so that I don't ding it up. Okay. And then I'm going to take the rod I was using, and I'm going to start at the tip. And then I'm going to rinse all the way down, making sure that I'm rubbing on the top and bottom of each one of the eyes. And the reason that I do that, especially on this rod, is the, I don't know what they're called, the things that hold the sick guides. They are not stainless. I'm sorry, they are not titanium. They are stainless, and they will rust. Now once I get to the bottom, I make sure that I get that good. And then I twist this up and down. Make sure that I get all the water out of there. And then I'll take the rod, and then I'll flick it a few times, making sure I don't hit the carport. And then I'll take my rag, and then again I'll start at the top, and then I'll towel dry it all the way down, making sure that I get the top and the bottom of each. Now, on some of my other rods, where the Fuji has metal bits right here, you need to make sure that this is completely dried out really well, because those Fuji seats, they tend to rust. They are not the best quality. So, make sure that goes on all the way. Make sure I get all the water out of there, because there's a little bit of metal there. It hasn't started rusting on me, but I don't want it to start. Okay, so now that I've done my rod, then what I'll do is I'll take my reel, And same thing, I'm just going to dry off as much as I can. And then this right here is just the first step in me getting this rinsed off. So like that. Now, once I have all the water removed from the top, where it's possible for water intrusion into the drag. All right, so obviously I'm now inside. The video cut out for the next part that I was going to do, and what that was, so I went ahead and stopped, is actually go ahead and loosen the drag all the way so that I can pull the spool off and go ahead and wipe out the water that is collected around this top part here. So that'll just slide on out, and then you can see that there's just a little bit of water that's sitting into there. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll go and get a paper towel, and then I will rough dry everything first. That looks good. Just pat this one a little bit. That's good. This looks nice and dry, but I'm still just going to wipe that out a little bit. And then from there, I'm looking pretty good. Now, I'm gonna go and visually inspect this, and what I'm seeing is there's just a little bit of what it looks like salt on the gold rim, just right there. So I'm gonna take a Q-tip, and I'm just going to go around and then just kind of wipe this out. Spin this around a little bit, it's not gonna hurt anything. And then that is good. I'm gonna wipe around the outside, make sure I get all the salt. If there's any salt buildup, that looks good. Same thing. You can kind of see in this cap right there, there's just a little bit of moisture, so I'll pull out the Q-tip just a little bit, and then I will follow this around the outside, trying to get in between the two pieces of rubber right there to get all that. You can see that I got some of the old grease out of there, which is good. It's been a few trips since I've replaced the grease, so this is good to do. Just go around, make sure everything's wiped off good. I'll set that off to the side for now on a new paper towel. That goes in the trash. Now for this, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the body, and there's a few bits that I pay very close attention to. This piece right here that's on the bearing, that will rust very quickly if it's not taken care of. So I make sure that I spray top and bottom, spray inside the hole, and then just use the tip and make sure I work that grease in really well. Open up my bell arm. And then anything that has any type of two pieces or moving parts, I go ahead and spray it. Now there are some bits like this right here that I just have a little bit of oil left on my tip. I can just go ahead and put that in there like that, and then I'm just going to make sure I get it really well. The other piece that you want to get is right here on the bell arm where this wire goes inside. Get that one, this side as well. Already got that, looks good. Already got that bolt, need to get that bolt. And so really anywhere that has two pieces that are coming in contact with each other. Once that's done, I'm gonna go and open this up back and forth, make sure I try to work that in there as well, as much as I can. Go ahead and spin this around a little bit. Okay, now that I have that, I'm then going to work on my knob. So same thing, I have two pieces that connect here. So I go to tap a little bit of oil onto there. a little bit of oil into there, and then spin it. Make sure I get that nice and worked in, and then that piece right there, just to keep the, try to get push the moisture out as much as I can. And then I believe, oh no, there's some here in the body, and then there's one more on the bottom side. Height here. Just tap it and tap it with just a little bit. In most cases, on this main body part, you don't want to use too much oil, but if you happen to have some oil, some overspray, it's fine. It's not going to do any harm to this. And then once I'm done with that, I actually go back over it now with a paper towel, and I dry it off as best I can, trying to remove as much of the excess oil as possible. Okay, so just cover the entire body. Now, I've been using this Stella for over 2 years, and I hope you can see how absolutely immaculate this thing still is. And remember, I'm using it on a kayak almost weekly. And I think that this nice coating of oil over the body of it actually helps prevent the corrosion. Though I don't know that to be fact, I would say that it doesn't hurt. So then I'm going to take my paper towel, and I'm going to make sure that I get in between all of these tighter places, including the two sides here. And then I'm pretty much done with my body. Now, there's one other place that I want to real quick touch up, and I'm going to make this go all the way to the top. And then I'm going to take a look in here, and it's looking good. I'm going to take a new Q-tip, and I'm just going to wipe that out just a little bit to make sure that there's nothing in there. And then this is the first time that I'm going to use grease. So this is going to be a grease point, and whenever you're working with grease in this area, either above or below, you do not want to overdo it. So literally just a little dab of it, that was too much. So I'm going to go back and wipe a good majority of that off, and then I'm going to slowly move that up and down to coat that with oil, and then I'm going to go back through it, and I'm actually going to remove some of this excess that's along the outside. The reason, and actually Shimano and others are going to recommend that you use grease in more parts than others. They're going to recommend that you use grease on some of the places that I just showed you for the oil. But one of the truths about grease is that it actually collects salt, and as this grease is working up and down, that salt is actually getting worked into the grease, and it's just rotating through. So the next part that I'm going to do is actually take off my handle, and as expected, there's a little dribble of water there in the bottom, and this is another grease point. So I'm going to go ahead and first paper towel it, try to get as much of that out as possible, and then I'm going to follow it up with a Q-tip, and I want to go all the way around the bearing, pull that out, and then you see the old grease coming out. That's looking nice and clean. That's going to go in the trash. Let me get this other one out in the trash. Now, the next part is I'm actually going to take this part off of the Stella. This is a 2-piece, and I'm going to take it all the way off. And then this has 2 layers to it. This is like the most annoying part of the Stella. You have this internal here, and then you have this external hollow. So I'm going to use 2 different Q-tips for this. Pull my cotton out, And then I can see some oil, I'm sorry, grease. I'm gonna use grease in this part. And then go in there and wipe that out good. Follow up with one more on this side. That's looking good. Trash. Now this is a very tight fit with the Q-tips. Again, I'm gonna pull those out. And then I'm actually gonna go in between here and try to get out any salt or any buildup that's inside of there, which it doesn't look like there was, which is good. A good rinse usually gets all that out. And then I'll go through and knock all of these out. That looks good. And then my paper towel, I'll find a cleanish spot on it, and then I'll go through and actually just spin this, trying to get off any of that residual grease that's still on there. This, as I said before, this is going to be another grease point. So I'll go ahead and this area here. Ooh. So another bit on this Stella that drives me crazy is this area here. It's really hard to get the old grease out of there, so I just do the best I can and get out as much as possible. And that grease actually looks fairly clean, so I'm not too worried about it. Pop that off. Now I will go ahead and for this, because I am going to coat this in grease, I'm going to put a backing on here so I don't get grease everywhere. I'm going to fill that up and then just let it sit in there, and it'll stay. I'll do the other side. Do this the same. Here and here. I then just put a little bit onto here, and then this will go on. These are reverse threaded, so lefty is tighty in this case. It goes all the way on. And then when I push, I'll get some of that grease coming out of the side. That's fine. I actually like it in this case. Now, the handle is pretty much done. I am going to take my grease and dab just a tap of it in there. You don't want to overdo it in that area. And I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to make sure that I grease that bearing all the way through. I'm then going to take off this side, and there should just be a dab of water in there. Actually, there's not, so that's looking really good. I'm still go ahead and wipe it out. That grease is looking really clean. Makes me happy. Okay, so I'm going to, that one's looking a little bit more used, which is fine. And then on the inside of this cap, same deal. I need to go ahead and wipe that out, because that's where actually most of the collected salt and residue and buildup is going to be. I want to try to make sure to get out as much of that oil or that grease as possible. Looks good. And then there's a little bit more in there. So that and that. Okay. I'm going to dab this with grease. That looks good. And then as I rotate this on here, it should spread, because again, you don't want to overdo these areas. Now, that's on there, that's on there. The other bit that you can do if you want to, I'm actually really bad about doing this part, and I'm looking for a flat head, which seems to have walked away. No. Okay, I wonder if I can do it with my... There it is. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna take a paper towel because I don't want to damage this, and I'm going to put this on here. I'm gonna loosen this up, and then I should be able to take that off. Now, this part I am really bad about doing, and ultimately in my mind I'm thinking if this ever needs to be replaced, it's actually fairly easy. Shimano, as well as the other brands, are really good about making these bits universal. So any handle that fits on this will fit on, or I can get one of the newer handles, or the these knobs, or I can get an aftermarket one by one of the other manufacturers, and it'll bolt right on. I don't have to worry about parts disappearing for this area. So you can see the last time I did this, I went ahead and shoved a bunch of grease in there. That's the old grease. Same thing. And then there's actually on the Stella, there's a bearing in there, so it spins freely. It spins nice and long. Really, really, really smooth. Just like with the higher end Iowas and all the other brands. Get that good. Okay, that's looking good now. And again, I'm just gonna grease this. Yep, and then spin it, make sure I get the grease working down into there. And then I'm going to dab this with grease. Boop. And then cover that as well. There it goes. Okay, just a little bit tight. Now, I'm just about done. I'm going to take this, put this on here. This is nice and dry. Make sure I got everything out. It does not look like I wiped this one out yet. So, I'm going to take a paper towel first. Make sure I get that good. That's looking much better. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I did this part. So, wipe that out. And I'm going to follow it up with a Q-tip. So, usually when I'm going over the body or any part, I'm going to start out with the basic paper towel, get out as much as I can, and then fine wipe it with the Q-tip, and then I'll follow it up by getting all of these little grooves. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Brandon, that's way too much work, I disagree. This is a really expensive reel, and it is a reel that will last me a lifetime if I take care of it. Cheaper reels that one will buy, even if you take really good care of it, they are not going to last you a lifetime. So in this case, I would say that taking care of this reel, maintaining it, it's totally worth it. Now, the last bit of grease that I'm going to use is going to be right here. You can see, I'm going to use my flat head for this. There's two bits right there. It's a little rubber seal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dab of it there. I'm going to push it in there. A dab of it there. That's looking fine. And then I'm not going to worry about spreading it. I'm going to go ahead and put it on there. And then as I spin it, it's going to distribute it along that seal. Now the first time that I do this, I'm going to go down all the way to make sure that I've distributed that grease. But as soon as I do that, I'm going to back off of it, because these reels, along with your star drag reels, they should not be stored. And actually on my lever drags, I do the same. I back off the drags completely so that, well, actually I don't know why. I've been told that you do not store these reels with the drags tight. And that is pretty much the start to finish on how I clean and maintain my spinning reel, in this case the beautiful Stella. I will go back through and actually wind this leader back up, and then take a rubber band that I have and go ahead and secure that down, and then I'll store this just like this for a few days, and then I will not put it into a pouch. I'll put it into a dry box with a dehumidifier, and that's how I store my reels. So as always, if you have any questions, let me know. If you see something that I am doing wrong or I could do better, again, good to know that. Please let me know. I don't take offense to that at all. If you found this video useful, then I do appreciate it if you subscribe. If you have any questions, yeah, let me know. So y'all have a good one, tight lines, and I hope your gear lasts a lifetime.